Winter Vinera is a very interesting unit. She's kind of a Swiss knife and can fit whatever role you want her to be. She is a Earth Element Pugilist, which is very interesting. So today we'll take a look at her stats, abilities, how to build her, where she'll perform, and just generally whether she's a good investment or not. I think Winter Victoria's main role is as a mage hunter. She's got decent magic resist by herself and is run at 50 faith, so it's kind of hard for mages to kill her, and then she can further increase magic resistance for everybody on her team with the Spellblade sub-job, which I think is the best combo you have. She has really high mobility and generally high damage moves if she gets in the enemy's face, which makes her a very interesting fit. Her two drawbacks in terms of attacking power is the fact that she doesn't have any guaranteed hit attacks or innately high accuracy, and then she doesn't have any ability to break barriers, so there are ways to mitigate her damage, but she makes up for that by using strike attacks, which there are very little ways to resist. If we look at her stats, I think the best comparison I can make is Oron. If you love playing Oron, Vinera is kind of a similar unit. She is a little bit more tanky than what Oron can get with everything that's in her kit, but she doesn't have as large AoE attacks as what his Tornado have, or the combo Guaranteed Hit, Barrier Breaker, Defense Penetration. All she has is Defense Penetration and Defense Reduction in her kit. But you can tell they have very similar HP, close to 4,000, similar attack. Oron has a little bit more at 526, but 500 is very respectable. At 60 agility, she is decent, not the fastest, but for a tanky character, 60 agility is not bad at all. Then some people have talked about building her for evasion, but at 245 luck, I don't think she's that competitive. That's the reason why I brought Yuar Zazan on screen, and you can tell he has 293 on top of evasion passives. Vinera has luck up in her passives, but she doesn't have a lot of evasion, and I don't think it's the best build for her. She does have 10 defense and 8 spirit, so it's fairly easy to build her as a bruiser, leveraging that, and then she's got decent resistances to slash and magical attacks, which are the most common types in the game. Weakness to missile could be an issue, but right now it's not that bad because the main missile units that people use all the time are lightning units, and she has some lightning resistance and can bank up on that with her Spellblade sub-jobs. So yeah, overall, really solid stat pool, I would say. Having some defense and very high HP on top of an impressive amount of attack makes her competitive with many of the options out there. If you want to run Winter Vinera, I think you have to take her all the way to 120. She gets a lot of HP by moving from 115 to 120, and as a character that's more of a bruiser, I think that's necessary for her. Also, as we'll take a look in a minute, her 120 ability is quite good, and I think she'll have a lot of use out of it. Her first upgrade, though, is in one of her passives, which is Warrior Spirit, and it gets 30 defense penetration. That is very important. Originally, Winter Vinera had 0 defense penetration. She had one buff that could give her 20, but that's not enough to deal with King Mons and Engelberts and etc. of this world. With that, she can go all the way to 50, which makes her a lot more competitive. And then her other upgrade is Wicked Pummel, which was already her best move against humans with a 195 mod. Now, if you're attacking a human with the upgraded version, you have a 230% mod, which is very high, and since she has decent attack, she can actually end up punishing enemies quite hard if she's able to lend it. It is melee range though, so it has the drawbacks that you have to reach and still be alive when that happens. But her 120 ability is a really decent long-range option. She used to only really have her Limit Burst as a good option from a long distance, but now she has an attack that decreases defense, deals decent damage, and then also decreased healing power. I like finishing off enemies with decreased healing power moves, especially in manual plays or when you know you're fighting a healer, because when they use full life, it brings them back at only half HP, if they do have that. So it's kind of a nice strategy. You could use that to finish off an enemy and then run away, or to engage in an enemy, then decrease their defense for the following turns, enabling the rest of your team. Here's what I think a standard build would be, and I like naming her Lightning Bane because with 42 lightning resistance, it's going to be really hard for somebody like Cloud, who's all the rage right now, to deal serious damage to her. She also has 10 slash resistance, which could be good, and then 46 defense pre-buffs. If she uses her Iron Body stance, she goes to 61, and then if she ends up fighting mages, she's got 27 magic resistance, and if you make her use resist magic, she goes all the way to 65, which which is kind of insane. So a really good all-around bruiser, and then she still maintains over 1000 attack and 75 earth attack with that build. So overall, I think that's going to be pretty good. I would see her as a good partner for any of the earth teams. I mentioned that before, but she has the ability with her limit break to reduce earth resistance from their target, thus enabling the rest of your guys. And then she's got a couple buffs for strike attackers. So if you want to pair her with somebody like Tifa, or maybe even To Be, and use the Pugilist sub-job, they're going to be a natural partners. I also like the fact that with Spellblade job, you could technically have her use Taunting Blade and generate hate, and then she's going to tank for a short while, but Taunting Blade is going to do almost no damage because she has a very bad amount of magic, and it's going to cost some AP from her. So if you want her to do that, you need some other form of AP generation. Otherwise, she'll start by generating hate, and then she'll be useless for a couple turns. And then you should avoid fighting wind units. Obviously, To Be with a Pierce attack that's wind element is going to wreck Winter Vinera, so that's not a matchup you want. Tifa is also pretty tough. She's going to survive Winter Vinera's attacks very well, while Tifa kills her rather quickly. And then Winter Vinera has no multi-hit attack unless you're equipping the Ninja sub-job, nor any barrier breaker moves. So if you're fighting somebody that grants barriers like Warrior of Light, somebody that generates their own barrier with the Black Witch's TMR, for example, it's going to be very hard for Vinera to actually kill the enemies, so you should use her as a bruiser in those setups, but definitely not as one of your main damage dealers. Is she a good unit to build? Well, if you already have her and you have a strong Earth account, I think yes, because there's so many different ways to build her that I think she can be whatever your Earth team needs. You need to fight mages? Spellblade. Go all into magic resistance. You need to fight lightning units and completely dominate them? You can build her with a very high amount of lightning resistance if you want to. You need physical bruiser that's going to tank. You can also give her very high physical survivability. So that versatility makes her a very interesting unit to have in your roster, so that whenever you have a role that you need to fit, you can kind of make her into that role. She has strike attacks, which are hard to resist. She's bulky. She can have really good mobility. So it's overall a solid kit. The reason I would not recommend that anybody pulls her is because, you know, there are more competitive units. There is Yuar Zazan, there's Drainforce Ketone, but mainly Muraga is the Earth Selection Quest unit, and if you're able to clear that quest, you have a unit that's very close in his kit to what Vinera is. He's a very good bruiser, can take on physical attacks very well, can somehow take magical attacks, and then deals good damage on the front line. I don't think Vinera can live and be worth spending Viz on that much in a world where you have a free alternative that's not much worse than what Vinera is. Looking at it by game mode, I would not give her that good of a grade in PvE unless the content is really tailored towards Earth units. Then maybe you would have a chance to run her, but otherwise there's going to be more competitive units in a lot of setups. She doesn't have the kind of crazy buffs that make her a must in teams. And if you need an Earth element Spellblade, there's Kilfei, who's not limited and who I believe most players have pulled over time. In Arena, she's going to shine a lot if you target lightning teams, but right now there's also a lot of wind teams. I don't think she's going to be very impactful in there. Guild battles, most of her good moves only have 2 casts, like Magic Resist, like Iron Body Stance, so I'm afraid that by the time she gets into the second fight, she'll run out of good abilities to use, and also her Limit Break is a very important part of her damage. She usually initiates with that and then finishes off the enemy with a second move, and so she won't have that for the second battle either. For manual PvP with a high mobility, I think you could use her as a good support for an Earth squad, so I could definitely give her a good rating-ish of 6 out of 10, but then in Odo, it's really hard to make Winter Vinera work well. Either you're going to give her Spellblade and then she'll stay back and your Bruiser will be behind your attackers, which is a little bit wonky, or you won't use Spellblade, she'll rush up in front, but then she's not a Spellblade, which is, I think, what's the most unique about her kit, being a physical attacker with Spellblade. So I find it very difficult to use her well in Odo, and as such, I can only give her 5 out of 10. I intend on eventually EXing her. I think she has an interesting kit enough that I will want to use her in the long run, but I don't see any immediate content where she would be very useful for me, so she'll be kind of a long-term project. I will not invest Blossoms into her unless I see somewhere where I want to use her for a while. So that's my take. Hopefully you guys found this interesting and it gave you some insight on whether this unit is worth it for you or not. And then, yeah, that's it. If you guys enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And then thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.